This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosts Civil War reenactments, ATV rodeos, mud bogs, diesel truck pulls, and high school rodeo finals. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a special welcome to two members of the Senate of Virginia, Senator Tom Garrett, Senator John Miller. Appreciate the two of you being on This Week in Richmond. And gentlemen, we want you just to help inform our viewers, both in your districts and around the Commonwealth, about some of the major issues. They may be your bills, or they may be the major issues that the General Assembly is dealing with. Senator Miller, you're in your second term, so we'll start with you. Senator Garrett's in his first term. So, and also, as I tell other guests, you are welcome to ignore me and just have conversation, and I'll keep track of the time.
Well, I appreciate the invitation to be with you, David. Let me just talk about, to start off with, the bill that I've been working on for the entire time I've been in the Senate, and that's to improve third grade reading test scores in Virginia. Jay Lark, at my request, and with the help of the governor, did a study on how we can improve third grade reading test scores. And it really is the most predictive test we have in school. If a third grader passes that third grade reading test, there's a 95% chance they'll pass the fifth grade and they'll be successful in school. But if they fail, and about 20% of the students in Virginia fail, that's 16,000 students fail that test, half of those, 8,000, are going to fail school. And so we spend so much money on remedial education, on dropout costs, on juvenile detention costs, on prison costs. And if we just took a small portion of that and put it at the front end to ensure that every child in the third grade can read at the third grade level, we'd save a whole lot of money, and we'd improve the lives of thousands and thousands of our young people. So this year, the Senate has always passed a bill that I have had that has said, from the JLARC recommendations, one of the things that we can do, we test children in 4 SOL subjects in the third grade. Only 6 states test that much in the third grade: reading, math, social studies, and science. The JLARC study says, let's cut those SOL tests from 4 to 2. Test reading and math, and we test history in the 5th grade, 4th grade, history in the 5th grade. Let's just give the children a very good, firm foundation on which to succeed with the basic tests of reading and math. We'll still teach science, we'll still teach history, but we just won't have this big end-of-year test. So this year, my legislation says we're going to do a pilot program across the Commonwealth in 16 jurisdictions. Some of the students will get 2 tests, some of the students will get 4, and we'll see if it makes a difference. I really think it'll be a game changer, that the test scores will go up for those who are spending more time on reading and math, and hopefully we can get that through the General Assembly this year.
Thank you. Senator Garrett?
David, thanks for having me.
Yes.
I want to start by commending Senator Miller on working with the governor. Obviously, education is a priority for the Commonwealth. We've rated in the top 4 nationally. I like to tell people that it's always good to be better, and so there are 3 states that we need to pass, and so I think that's a step in the right direction, and the governor has a number of initiatives along those lines. I have a couple of bills that I also think in the macro will be good for the Commonwealth. One is has been up a number of years prior to my arrival, and that is a 2-term governor bill. One of the major issues that's been facing the Commonwealth, not now, but going back into the 80s, is how do we fund transportation for the long term. And I would submit that this problem is so old that if it were a person, it would have voted in the last 2 or 3 presidential elections, and it could buy cigarettes or beer if it wanted to. And that's unacceptable. And so A two-term governor, I believe, would allow for the continuity of messaging, the continuity in the budget process, and the dedication to a single overarching issue to solve long-term macro problems like that. Certainly there are those who would suggest that we already have a strong executive, and certainly we do. And I think we should relook at the powers of the executive if we were to transition. But let me give you a few facts. The history of Virginia's system of gubernatorial non-secession of oneself is really a remnant of the post-Civil War Reconstruction era, when Southern executives were contained by not allowing them to hold power for but so long. And we're past that. As a Commonwealth, we voted twice for an African-American presidential candidate. We elected the first African-American governor in Virginia's history. And so Reconstruction era notions in 2013, I think, really hinder us attacking and tackling the long-term challenges we face, and I use transportation as but one example. Another bill that I have, and have a sort of an agenda to create consistency and clarity for business people and employers. And so a second bill that I have is one that would cap state regulations at no more stringent than the companion federal regulation when such regulation existed, barring the action of the General Assembly. Certainly we have special challenges in Virginia. The Chesapeake Bay is something that we need to have good stewardship of. But what I've heard from constituents and employers is that you come into compliance with one set of regulations and find yourself out of compliance with another. So what this would do is it would set the bar uniformly. If you're in compliance with the federal standards, you're in compliance with the state standards, except where the General Assembly has deemed that we have a special need in the Commonwealth. This sort of simplification of the regulatory climate and consistency would allow the job creators the freedom to focus on doing just that, creating jobs, as opposed to jumping through administrative and regulatory hoops.
Well, thank you both for laying out those major issues that you both are working on in our remaining time, and mention some other issues. And Senator Garrett, we'll start with you this time, and then go back to Senator Miller. Any other issue, perhaps even that some of your colleagues are working on that you'd like the viewers to be better informed about?
Well, I'm going to actually go down the road of what may seem sort of sublime and unimportant to many of your viewers, but I think it's illustrative of what we do so often, and that is we had a bill come before Senate Ag yesterday, and that bill said that you could hunt coyotes on Sundays, which seems like something that's not a terrible challenge facing the Commonwealth. But let me tell you what the problem is here. We have 18 localities in Virginia in the last few years who have imposed bounties on coyotes between $25 and $75 a head. The federal government's done it. The state has funded these bounties in the past. It is a non-native, invasive species. I know a sheep rancher who has lost literally 44% of his herd in a year. I was privy to a conversation at a 4th of July picnic where a large neighborhood group had gathered, and by the time people had gotten done counting cats and dogs that had disappeared, they were at 18. But that's not the problem. We have this Sunday hunting prohibition that's so broad and ignores reality so much that in the name of preventing Sunday hunting, we countermand our existing policy where we're spending money, time, and energy through DGIF and these bounties and federal and state resources, and it flies in the face of what we're trying to do. Either we're trying to control or eradicate this invasive non-native species, or we're not. And so I use that to illustrate the point, and I would imagine Senator Miller might agree, but maybe on a different subject matter, that sometimes we have a policy that we say is important to us, and then we make policy in other arenas that adversely affects that policy. So as a Commonwealth and as a legislative body, we need to focus on where are we trying to go, and then make sure that our legislative agendas take us in that direction. And I think we don't do that as much. It's something that I hope we can bring in our office and maybe get catching, if you will, across the General Assembly.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I voted for that good coyote bill yesterday, so I appreciate that. Let me talk about transportation for a moment, because as everyone knows, we face a crisis in transportation. We are going to run out of money for the construction of new roads in just a few years, in 2017. Hampton Roads and Northern Virginia face the impact the worst. But in Hampton Roads, the Navy has told the leadership of our area that they will not invest any more assets in Hampton Roads unless we fix the transportation problem. They can't get their sailors from home to the base in a timely fashion. So we've got to do something. The governor has put out a plan, and it has sparked a lot of serious discussion. Senator Watkins has a plan. There are some others that are floating around, but I am hoping that at the end of the day, we can address this transportation issue in this session with dedicated, realistic, and sustainable sources of revenue. We've got to do something. In Hampton Roads, how are you going to get 1 million people on South Side in Norfolk and Virginia Beach through 50-year-old tubes if a hurricane comes up? The economy, you can't get your goods and services back and forth if you're stuck in traffic all the time. So I'm hoping that we're going to take a broad approach, that it's going to be at least $1 billion, whatever we generate, that we both find new revenues and take some money from the general fund. You have to do both in order to meet this problem. But I'm hopeful. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, so I'm eternally optimistic. But I'm really hopeful that this year we're going to address transportation in a meaningful way.
I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, and I'm really optimistic right now.
You should be.
I think it's really heartening to hear my colleague talk about transportation the way that he did. I think that the governor deserves kudos for at least proposing a plan that begins to address the continuing need. And you know, again, this is a problem that has stalked us in one way, shape, or form, or one scale or another, for closing on 30 years. And to hear Senator Miller, and I think he's exactly right, suggest that some review of general fund allocations is appropriate, I think is on target. Now, I've not yet seen the golden ribbon wrapped around the general fund that says it can't be used to address the Commonwealth's most pressing needs. And the fact of the matter is, we're there. You're exactly correct. Businesses will not come to a community that doesn't have the infrastructure to support those businesses. So this needs to be something where we set aside, you know, partisanship, and we look at the long-term future of the Commonwealth. There are a lot of things in the governor's proposal that I think, if we look at individually and not from a party perspective, are good. There's certainly, you know, there are other ideas that need to be brought to the table, but now is the time. I mean, there's no excuse for Virginia's pro-business rating, for our success over the years to be frittered away in partisan bickering. When we have identified the problem, it has to be a central goal and theme of governance. And so I really am hopeful that by the time this show airs, we'll have made some real progress towards addressing this issue. Ultimately, in government, just like at the kitchen table, you have to sit down and you have to say, what are our priorities? And any honest look at the challenges facing our Commonwealth that doesn't include transportation is either short-sighted or ill-informed.
I want to thank both of you for being on this week in Richmond. And I was just thinking, if we had two members of the House sitting here, maybe you all could work this out, because I think for the first time in years, even in decades, there is legislation likely to pass each chamber. And so I'm sure the people of the Commonwealth are pulling for you and for your colleagues in the other chamber to try to work something out then that goes to the governor. So thank you very much for being on This Week in Richmond.
David, thank you.
As we welcome our viewers back, I want to welcome two additional senators for this segment of This Week in Richmond, Senator Dick Black, Senator Dave Marsden. Appreciate you all being on This Week in Richmond. Gentlemen, we want to talk about the issues that you want to better inform our viewers around the Commonwealth regarding. And as I told your colleagues and tell others who are on the show, you may certainly ignore me and just talk with each other, and I'll keep track of the time and let you know when our time's up.
Well, Dave is my friend, so I'm always happy to be here.
That's right. We shared a car ride the other night and had a chance to catch up on a few things. So,
Senator Black, you served a time in the House and then in the Senate, so let's start with you, and then we'll come to Dave, who also has that service, that long service, and start even by taking one issue each, and then let's get it going.
Well, you know, going back to last year's presidential elections, one of the things that frustrated a lot of people is we had very stringent standards for qualifying for the ballot, and as a consequence, now this of course affected the Republicans, but it could have been Democrats just as easily. We ended up with just two candidates out of a fairly substantial field who could meet the Virginia filing requirements. That may have actually determined the outcome of the presidential elections. I know there were many Republicans who wanted to vote for other candidates and could not because only 2 got on the ballot. We have very tight restrictions on getting petition signatures. We have to get 10,000 and have to get a certain number in each congressional district. And what I've done is I've cut the number, or I'm attempting to cut the number in half only for presidential elections. And the reason for presidential elections is that these candidates have got to be able to qualify in all 50 states. So I don't want to set up a process or continue a process where only the wealthiest candidates are able to get on the ballot because they're able to hire people and that sort of thing. So there seems to be, substantial support to lower that bar and make it a little more practical for people to enter the presidential primary in Virginia. So that seems to be on track, seems to be doing pretty well.
Thank you. Thank you. Dave?
Well, thank you, David. I think the big thing this year, as Governor McDonnell talked about in his address to on the state of the Commonwealth, is our transportation crisis here in Virginia. We have been remiss in providing for transportation funding, and I commend the governor for getting a bill out, getting new revenue on the table. I think the bill is a good place to start, but I think I have a number of issues that need to be addressed in this bill that are a problem. The first is the elimination of the gas tax, which is a 17.5 cent per gallon gas tax we passed in 1986, and its purchasing power is down to about 8.5 cents. So clearly we need more transportation funding, but to eliminate the gas tax and substitute an 0.8% increase in the sales tax puts the burden mostly on Virginians to pay for this tax, because we're taking folks who are driving through the state and purchasing gasoline sort of off the hook to pay for Virginia roads. So that's a concern that I have, and I want to see some different ideas out there. I think Senator Watkins' bill, Senator Albo's bill are really good measures that need to be looked at carefully. I think the governor's number, I think he comes up with 800 and some million, but it relies on the federal Congress passing an internet sales tax that we can direct towards transportation funding. And while that may be a great idea, and I'd be in favor of that, we don't know whether that's coming through or not. And the governor is diverting a 1/4 cent over 5 years, phasing in a 1/4 cent transfer of the sales tax from the general fund to transportation, which in 5 years will be $300 million from the general fund, which is where we pay for education, first responders, public safety, social services. It transfers that money out, and we're still not recovered from the recession. We're still at about 2007 spending levels in these areas. So using large amounts of general funds, 282 million or so, in this transportation provision is, I think, ill-advised. I'm willing to take a look at putting some general funds in, but let's get to a real number where we not only solve our maintenance problem, but get a down payment on getting some construction done here in Virginia, and that's more like $1 billion, $1.2 billion, which is what some of the one of the other bills actually gets to.
Well, and I agree. Transportation it's a perennial issue. You've got a philosophical divide. There are folks on the Republican side who say, look, we run surpluses year after year, substantial surpluses. We ought to be able to use that money for transportation if it is a real priority. The other side, you have, I think, more on the Democratic side, the feeling that if you use general funds for transportation, that it's going to sort of eat into education, social programs, and so forth. That is a long-standing divide and one that we've got to bridge in some way. Now, interestingly, I went to a subcommittee the other day. I was kind of surprised it was a subcommittee proposing casino gambling, which I hope will not go very far. But anyway, part of the idea was to allocate half of all of the gambling proceeds to transportation. And I asked the question, I said, well, I thought we didn't ever want to put general funds into transportation. I thought there always had to be a user fee, but apparently there's the casino gambling exception, and that so. But now I don't favor casino gambling at all. But there was one thing we did find very common agreement on. The administration is proposing to put a great deal of money into building Highway 460 into a divided major interstate type highway. And I can tell you from driving on that road that it is a very sparsely used road. And so the idea that we're going to take a road where there is no congestion and plow tremendous amount of money into it, we have serious problems in the tidewater where they're constrained by having to go through tunnels. Mm-hmm. And I asked the question, I said, why are we not spending that money to build one of these tunnels and alleviate traffic? And all of a sudden there was total agreement, Republican, Democrat, right. Everybody said, why are we not doing that? And I said, I would certainly support any effort to shift that money over.
Yeah. Well, I certainly agree with my friend on Route 460. It's a road that nobody needs improved to that extent, and it's a lot of money that we're taking and putting into that, and it doesn't have any congestion relief aspects to it. Where I would have a different view is on this whole issue of using surpluses. You know, now if I told my wife, honey, I'm taking your car and we're going to eat Cheerios for the rest of the year, and we're going to have a surplus in our family budget. I think that's, to a certain extent, that's what the state has done. When you don't put money back into education, when you don't put money back into public safety, and you cut and you cut, and then voila, you have this surplus at the end of the year, and say, well, why don't we put it into transportation? Well, we've taken it from other things and created sort of a false surplus. Now, if we had been able to restore our funding levels to education, public safety, health and human services, and then, you know, we are running a surplus because the economy's rolling, I don't have any problem with putting some of that money into transportation. But that's not what's happened here. What we've done is create these sort of forced surpluses. And to put that money in transportation just means that it's not there to restore funding to schools and other important state services.
You can see the philosophical divide.
Yeah, the debate,
you know,
yes.
I think on our side, I would say, you know, for the family budget, if you planned a vacation to Hawaii and all of a sudden a tree fell on the roof, you would say, okay, we got to change our priorities. We fixed the roof. The vacation to Hawaii is finished, but that's the philosophical divide.
Right.
And the issue here would be, again, you know, in the fixing the roof analogy, our broken roof is in our school funding right now, and we need to get the money back there before we start having surpluses that we put into transportation, and change the policy that we've had in the Commonwealth that we try to tie transportation funding to users through gas tax, through tolls, although I'm not a big fan of tolls. Or through other things that we've historically designated towards transportation. I wish we were good enough to put all the money in one big general fund pot and have the wisdom to know how to divide it up. But I think it's important that we have a baseline of transportation funding that is designated for that. I'm a lockbox fan. Put it in a lockbox and don't use it for anything else. And I think that helps discipline us in our budgetary areas, because you know, we're legislators and we're representing the people in our districts, and they want sometimes other things, and I don't want to divert money from transportation to other general fund areas, nor do I want to take money from general fund areas and put it in transportation.
Our time is almost up. Any other issue you'd want to just mention?
Well, you know, I might just touch on, you know, we've had an issue where we're engaged in the national debate over firearms and how to best have safety in our schools. Again, we have a philosophical divide. I've co-sponsored a bill with Delegate Bob Marshall where we would set up standards where there would be one teacher, principal, or assistant or employee of the school who's been there for 5 years who would undergo special training and would be able to protect the students.
Apologize for interrupting you, but I think our time is up. It flies by. I look forward to having you all back on This Week in Richmond, perhaps even after the session, to talk on some other issues. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you,
We
David.
appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosts Civil War reenactments, ATV rodeos, mud bogs, diesel truck pulls, and high school rodeo finals. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.